Hello and welcome to Equipping Women. I'm excited to be back tonight. Tonight is a really unique topic that it sounds strange saying that I'm excited to talk about it, but I think it's going to be a really sweet, encouraging topic and helpful one, and therefore fruitful. So looking forward to getting to talk with Molly about this. But if you look in the Word, one of the things that you take note of is there are multiple mentions of the treatment of widows in the Bible. It talks about us honoring them, it talks about us not neglecting them, and it talks about us going to them in their times of distress. And so tonight I've asked Molly Forrest to come alongside us here, and Molly's going to help us with some insights and some thoughts. She's going to speak to widows tonight, and then she's going to speak to friends of widows. And specifically, though we're going to talk a lot of different things, we're going to target in on during the holidays and the unique challenges that bring. But let me just real quickly introduce you. This is Molly Forrest, and Steve, and Bill. Bill's in here. Bill. This is
She's just the drive-by way.
She's a drive-by way. This is the sweet girl. All right,
The sweet girl.
and
Most of the time.
right. Well, so the Lord gifted this sweet family to Buck Run in 2014, and immediately they began looking for a place to serve. They found it, and then they serve. And you guys have been serving since. As soon as your feet hit the ground here, you guys just jumped in, and they. Bill and Molly serve in our worship music team and ministry team. Molly is a voice in it. She does sings, and Bill does mostly she does bass. But she recently I've been seeing her rock it out on the drums, and I can't help but say that I can just visualize her dad's proud face.
Oh, yeah.
And
For sure.
I mean, that's anything. But
Yeah.
real quick about your girl, she is lovely and kind Christian woman who is super cool. And
Thank you.
so she's
so.
I think so. I think she's wonderful. But so we're going to just address some things. But I want to start off with this passage of scripture that Paul writes in 2 Corinthians. And what you know about 2 Corinthians, it's a real raw letter. So he addresses some very sensitive things and addresses even almost aggressively in the text. But he starts out and he says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction or troubles, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction, with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. For as we share abundantly in Christ's sufferings, so through Christ we share abundantly in comfort too." And I just think this is really a fitting passage for us and for this topic tonight. But before I think our folks have the opportunity to listen to you, I think it helps them to know the how and the why you can speak to this. Mm-hmm. So I want our folks to get to know you just a little better, so that the hows and whys make sense. Gotcha. And we'll be able to receive that. So tell us a little bit about your story. And first of all, like how did you and Steve meet?
Steve and I met on a mission trip.
Really?
We did. Way back in the 19s.
Yeah.
I think it was 86 or 87. So probably 33 years ago or something like that, if I'm doing my math correctly.
Okay.
Our church went to their church for like 7 years in a row and helped them do Vacation Bible School.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, that's normal in the South, but at that time, Vacation Bible School was not a thing in churches in the North.
Right.
And so we would go and help them. And we had mostly girls. They had mostly boys in their youth group.
How perfect.
And so, things happen,
Right.
And we just became really good friends. And when he went in the Air Force, we wrote back and forth. So we had a long-distance relationship off and on for about 7 years.
7?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew him a long time for that. So now let's fast forward. And how long were you guys married?
We were married almost 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you guys did like community groups and all those kinds of things. So you were plugged in as a family in church. It was
were.
a real key element of your relationship to each
sure.
other is your relationship to the Lord.
Right.
And so when did Belle come along?
Belle came along in 2004.
Okay.
I think most of our family and friends had about given up on us having a child. And because we had been long distance for 7 years, we were just enjoying actually being in the same place.
Oh, sure.
You know,
Right.
and getting to have like a regular kind of relationship. And so, it was kind of intentional on our part to wait. And so then we both kind of got ready to have a child at different times.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of trying to get in sync a little bit there on when we were ready. And then here she came, and 7 years later, it was 7 years before she came along. And gosh, you talk about it changing everything.
Doesn't it though?
It
Wow.
does.
I mean,
And, people have said before, people would tell us, you need to go on and have children so that you can enjoy your retirement years together. And for some reason, we resisted that.
Right.
And I feel like that was part of the Lord's plan. He knew
what
that
you
Steve wasn't
didn't.
going to be here
Right.
for
Yeah.
my retirement years.
Absolutely.
So we got that alone time.
Yeah.
Those 7 years.
Yeah.
At the beginning of our marriage.
Right. Wow.
So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Isn't the Lord just so?
The details.
The details.
details.
Yeah. Yeah. He does. I mean, he just covers all bases.
Yeah.
He does. All right. So, all right. Now let's just move right into it, so that as we listen to you, if you don't mind sharing the what or whens of when your life basically just took a whole nother course.
Right.
The Lord sent you on a different trajectory.
Yeah.
What that was and is.
It's been 4 years, November the 12th. So I know we've had a lot of new members come into Buckruns since
Right.
then, so a lot of them probably don't
know.
our story. It was actually the weekend that we were having our first public service in this building. We had the family gathering the weekend before. He and Belle, oddly enough, were in New York visiting his family because that's where he's from. And I had to stay to work. So I had been here that week and they had not. And then we were really excited about the opening, the public opening of the building and everything. And it was a regular Saturday morning, and he was going to go hunting. He loved it, and he had gotten deer before, but he'd never gotten a buck. And so that was just like the thing. He was just ready to do that, So he got up well before Belle and I even thought about being awake. And he was gone. And then Sherry Farley came to the house, and she and I were going to go to Sam's Club that day. And so Evie came to stay with Belle. Belle was 12 at the time. And it was really kind of the first time we were going to leave her and a friend alone at the house. But Steve was going to be home at lunchtime.
Right.
So they were just going to be alone for just a little bit of time. So Sherry and I we were out Georgetown Road almost to Bedford Road. And I got a call from my mom. And she said, we need you to come home. And my first thought actually went to my dad. My dad's had heart issues, and that's for some reason what I thought. And then my mind went to Steve, and I thought, well, maybe he fell out of a deer stand, or maybe another hunter shot him or something, shot him in the leg. My mind would not let me go to the worst. It was that he was hurt. And I'm thinking, why does she want me to come home? I should be going to the hospital.
Right.
And I guess it was at that point that it came to me. And I said out loud, Lord, I don't know what I'm walking into. Stay close to me.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. Because I didn't know what it was going to be. I don't know what was going through Sherry's mind, but she turned her van around, and we made it back to the house. And what had happened was, actually, he had texted us earlier that morning. He had gotten his buck, and he was so excited. So Belle and I both had gotten a text with a picture of the buck. And the farm that he was hunting on was a friend's farm. And he had gone to the house and talked to them a while and shared his excitement with them, and then asked if he could borrow their tractor to go and get the deer and bring it back up to his truck. And the tractor had a bucket on the front of it. And as he was going up an incline, the deer shifted in the bucket and turned the tractor over on top of him. And I struggled with that for a long, long time. The thought of him being out there by himself.
Right.
And that was really hard for me to get over, the thought of him being out there alone. And finally, the Lord just spoke to my heart one day and said, he wasn't alone. He said he'll always be with us. He'll never leave us or forsake us.
Right.
And when you can take God's word and just lay it over that pain and that grief and that,
Absolutely.
that's a promise. And that's one of
Yes.
the things I think that I've learned the most during these 4 years is, I was raised in a Christian home. I've known things about the Lord my whole life. But there's something different when you experience those things. You know them, you know they're there, and you know that God's promises are true. But when you get to experience them, it's different. So, man, I wish I could have learnned that in a different way.
Absolutely.
But, he is truly near to the brokenhearted.
Yeah. You applied all those truths that you had heard,
Right.
and now they're covering you.
Yeah.
And
Now you
filling
know
you.
them to be true for yourself personally.
Right.
So
Right.
those are some of the blessings that come
Right.
with
Right.
hard times and hard moments.
Well, I remember this so vividly. Our whole church experienced this with you. And we all know and love Steve, and that was a hard blow for everybody. But just the way you and Belle just were steadfast and faithful in it is just an incredible testimony. And so I know that by experience and now helping other people how to know to apply those kinds of things. So during the holidays, it presents a different challenge, though, doesn't it?
For sure.
Especially your first.
Right.
Any of those things.
And our first was right away. I mean, it was November the 12th.
I was going to say it was 4 years
it was
almost. Right around now.
And November's still hard for me. I still, it's just
Hunting season, all of it.
Yeah.
All of that hits.
It's a really hard season to get through. Within a week and a half, 2 weeks, it was Thanksgiving. It was time to go be with family and be thankful and then go into the Christmas season and everything.
Right.
And pretty much when something like that happens in your life, you're a little bit on autopilot for a while.
Right.
You're just kind of functioning.
Yeah.
Because this is what you do.
Right. Elizabeth Elliot, when she talks about suffering, and it was specifically pertaining to she had just found out that her husband and the team had just been speared to death by the Indians that they had gone to try to reach. And she just remembered when she got that word, and she had a daughter, and her move was just do the next thing.
Right. Exactly.
And that's, autopilot is not a bad thing.
Right.
And
it was autopilot, but then I've told people constantly that was another truth that I learned about the Lord was he doesn't give us strength for what we're going to do next week, today. He gives us strength for the very next thing.
Exactly.
When I was thinking about the afternoon I was getting ready to go and walk in that room with my girl before the visitation started. We were going to have that little family time, so that you can be there and kind of get yourself acclimated to being there and all of that. I was thinking about that as I was getting ready, and I was like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to take my 12-year-old daughter in and show her daddy? And of course began praying about that. He didn't give me that strength at home, and he didn't give me that strength in the parking lot. He gave me that strength as I walked in the room.
That's such a good word.
And it just taught me that he's going to give you strength, but you just have to trust that it's going to be in the moment. And try to tell people that haven't experienced this and sometimes dread the thought of losing their spouse. There's nothing I can say that's going to make you not dread that.
No.
Or make you want to shoo that thought from your brain. What I can tell you is that God is faithful to be right there with you in it.
Yeah.
And if and when it happens, you've lost your life companion, but you've not lost him.
Yeah.
You know, he's just right there giving you strength for every second.
Well, I testify to watching you do that, and watching God's grace be in full and on display and glory given to him.
I hope so.
I'm telling you, I mean, you're just, I can't praise God enough because of the way you followed him closely. And it made me trust him more and love him more because of your actions and reactions.
I think it's when I asked him to stay close to me,
Yeah.
and immediately he was, then I could trust him, you know.
Yeah. That's
for the
true.
next, and
That's
the
right.
next, and the next. The more
That's
times
right.
he proves himself faithful, the more you can trust him. you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the holidays are very, very hard.
All right, so give us some help. Help us think through, like, I know he comforts you. I know he provides for all those things, but let's speak to those who are widowed first. So what are some really practical things that you either experienced and found to be helpful, or that you know on this end, I wish I had done that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So,
the first one is skip the hard. There are hard things
So
in
what-
the holidays.
what would you classify as hard?
Hard would be maybe being with somebody in your family
Okay.
that's difficult to deal with. Somebody that has already proven to be somebody that sticks their foot in their mouth. Somebody that's not sensitive. You know who those people are.
You do.
And, this just isn't the year to put yourself through that. The hard might be going to a family event that's just too much.
Right.
Every person that's gonna look different.
Right.
I'm trying to think of something personal that we had to skip that year that was hard for us.
Well, because all of these now will be your first, and they
Right,
always say
right,
your
and they-
first.
and it's kind of sets a precedent for the next few years. And you just have to take extreme care of yourself that first year,
Yeah.
because things aren't going to sit with you the same way
Right.
that they would normally. Here's a hard thing is you don't have to buy presents for everybody.
What a practical thing. Yeah. Right.
That list needs to be shorter. You don't have to fix the big meal for everybody. Or even take
Yeah.
a dish
Right.
to the party you're going to or the family event that you're going to. Just give yourself a break.
Yeah.
If you don't want to put up the tree, don't put up the tree. Now, for us, that was, especially because I had a daughter, that was really important that we go on and do those things. I wanted to make it as normal for her
Right.
as I could.
But there's no problem with being told you need to skip the hard things.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. It really is. You don't have to. You don't.
Yeah,
you
you
have
give yourself grace for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So then, what else would you say? Like, I know when you taught this in a class one time, you had a session where you did it. You talked about traditions.
Yes.
How about that one?
Yeah. Belle and I have started new traditions. And one of our favorites is every year we get an ornament that reminds us of Steve. He's a big car guy.
Okay, so there's a running theme.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's a big car guy. He loved NASCAR. He loved the Yankees. He loved the Bills. His nickname was Tree because he was 6'6", and his last name was Forrest. And so from high school and in the Air Force, everybody, all of those guys that he went to school with or were in the Air Force with know him as Tree. That didn't carry over when he moved here, but
Right.
yeah, but
But
that's
he
a big
really,
part.
but though we didn't know Tree, his name,
Yeah.
he really is larger than life guy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, he's big in stature, and he just he just owns his space.
So when you see me wear Trees a lot,
that's what that means.
that's what
How about that?
That's what that is. Actually, Sherry Farley gave me those earrings
That's
because
precious.
she knew that connection.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
So, in fact, the ornament, we've already gotten our ornament this year, and it's a tree.
Okay.
And so eventually we'll have enough ornaments to
Yeah.
do a whole tree
Yeah.
in those ornaments. And I usually write on the back what year it is.
What year.
And then it's our Steve ornament. Um,
So you suggest people sort of create
Yeah.
a new tradition,
Yeah,
for
just-
themselves, for their family,
Yeah, and
or
it doesn't have to
whatever.
be a big thing.
Uh-uh.
Just something small, just something for us, it helps us include him. Because he's still my husband.
Absolutely.
And he's still her daddy.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and we talk about him all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about when you go to, let's say you're gathered in the family thing and there's silence there, and there's that awkwardness.
Yeah.
You help with that one.
People will avoid bringing it up. And to where there's an elephant in the room that nobody wants to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge your loss because they don't want to make you sad. Guess what? You're already
sad. And they don't want to cause you to have to think about him. Well, guess what?
We
You're
are
already thinking
Absolutely.
about him.
You're already thinking about it. I mean, I'm 4 years in,
Yeah.
and I think about him constantly. So I say, take the lead, break the ice,
Yeah.
talk about him.
Yeah.
You know, say, oh, do you remember when this happened? Because most of the time, it might bring a tear or two, but most of the time, especially in our case, because Steve was so funny, it
You
makes
can
everybody laugh.
Right.
You know, and it does break the tension. And then it opens the door for everybody to share their stories with you, some of which might be just a reminder, and some of which that you never had heard before.
Right.
And then instead of
That's
it making you
sweet.
cry, it makes you just be
Celebrate his
full
life.
Yes.
Makes you celebrate
It makes you
his
so
life, yeah.
full
Right.
of peace and love and joy because other
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
remember him well.
Yeah. Well, saying that, one thing that I remember was at a marriage retreat. And I don't know if you remember, like they brought out these big furry vest things, and so I posted a picture of like those furry vests, kind of made fun of them, mocked them, and you and Steve were somewhere, I guess in Gatlinburg, maybe, right?
We were at the marriage retreat.
Yeah, and I don't know where he found one big enough. It was this giant furry vest, and he took a picture of it and posted it on my Facebook.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
it's
he
like,
didn't
can
care.
can
He
I
did
join
not
the
care.
club? No, he's just like he owns it again, and I love that.
Yeah.
He really is. His personality was so large.
Yeah.
And he didn't take himself seriously.
Right.
And so I appreciate that you encourage people for them to break the ice.
Yeah,
and
because
throw that out there.
People are following your lead, and they think they're going to make you feel bad.
Right. Exactly.
And that's not the case. So you need to just put it out there.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
not awkward anymore.
Right. If you do it,
Right.
it's not. It takes an element of awkwardness
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about your emotions? How you deal with your emotions during that time?
Oh gosh. I am.
Because you're an emoter, right?
No, actually, I'm not.
You are when you praise, sing. So that's sweet.
Yes,
That's sweet.
It's funny. I've told people many times, I don't cry over movies. I don't cry over Hallmark commercials. I don't cry over anything like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been teased that I'm hard-hearted. I'm not hard-hearted. But I do get emotional when I'm worshiping
You do.
or when I'm mad.
Oh, well,
So
there we
you
go.
I don't know what that says about me, but that's the way it is. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm able to talk about this subject without breaking down most of the time. Because,
Well, how about if you're one of those emoters?
if you're one of those emoters, and at that time, especially during that first year, that first holiday season, when I'm just with my family, I'm going to be a mess sometimes, you know, and that's okay. I mean, and that's probably where we were talking about at first, skip the hard. You know, the people that can't handle that.
Right.
You know?
True.
And if you know somebody can't handle that, then that might not be somebody you want to be with. But I was with people that could handle that and could handle me looking off into space if that's what I
Right.
wanted
That's
to
what.
do.
And my next thing was, like sometimes your brain just has to go silent.
And I
And th-
still find myself doing that sometimes. I can be in a room full of people, and if I have a lonely moment come over me or something, I can kind of go to a place. And so that's new for me. That's been new since I've been a widow. But I think it's important too that you laugh. Let yourself laugh. I mean, I think some people feel guilty. Well, my goodness, Steve
For
Forrest
enjoying
would
life
not be
and all
happy
that.
with
Oh,
me if
no.
I was sitting here
No.
anytime not laughing and having a good time.
Right.
I mean, he was the life of the party, and he would not be happy with me if I was doing that, living
Yeah.
that way. And so, yeah, I mean, even the first holiday season without him,
Right.
let yourself play games or watch a
Right.
funny movie.
Well, I heard
or-
somebody say one time, when somebody loses a spouse and the other person decides to grieve terminally, basically just keep going, then there's more than one casualty.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that isn't God's design. If He intended to take you,
Right.
He would have taken you.
Yeah.
And so here He's leaving you with a testimony that He is faithful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but emotions are they're raw, aren't they?
They are. They are. They can be really hard, and you don't know, especially early on. You don't know when that's going to hit. I mean, you can be totally fine, and that was probably the case for at least the first year, if not into the second. That you're fine, and then out of nowhere,
A flood.
it
Yeah.
just knocks you down.
Yeah.
And so give yourself permission to do that, but also give your permission to have fun.
Yeah. Which moves me to the next one. All right. So we know that a lot of times when people are great about, like, if you've got kids and they come along and they'll like help you with your kids and all that kind of stuff. But how did you address the dynamic of now you're a mom and you don't have a spouse
Right.
that pays attention to that element,
Yeah.
the wife?
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know.
Steve was a great gift giver. And, there were things that he always got me for Christmas. Like, he always got me pajamas. He always got me slippers because he knew, I mean, that's, I love that. And so those things, and he gave me other things besides that were a surprise. But those things were pretty normal. So I went out and bought some of that kind of stuff. I wrapped that sucker up.
That's great.
So that I would have something to open. And then I also sent my girl with one of my sisters and sent the money and
That's-
said, take her shopping, get me something. Because
That's
I
great.
knew Christmas morning was going to be hard. Well, what makes it harder? You're the only ones, you're sitting there not getting any
That
gifts.
is so practical.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Now, some people might think that's pretty self-serving of me, but I didn't want to start my day off, a difficult day off, also being in the dumps because I didn't get any presents.
Well, not to mention the awkwardness that it
Yeah.
leaves other people feeling.
Yeah.
It's like they get a gift and then it occurs to them at the last
Yeah.
minute,
Yeah.
oh,
And
I didn't cover this base. I didn't get you.
It was always important to me and Steve too, because Belle was an only child, that we didn't make everything about her. So we were always very intentional that even when we did not have money really to buy her gifts and to buy each other gifts, we didn't want it to be the Belle show when it came time for opening gifts, So we would go out and get little cheap things and wrap them up and give to each other just so she could see this isn't all about
Right.
you,
Yeah.
And
The
so
phrase "we need more Belle" is not in your book. Belle's going to appreciate this. She gets it even if Molly doesn't. Okay, go. Sorry.
private
Go,
joke, right?
go.
Yeah. So for sure, I wanted to carry that on even after he was gone. That I don't want her to be
Yeah.
the focus in life, because that's not going to serve her well going forward, right?
No, it's teaching her to think about other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my sister Marty would take her, and they would go shopping, and they would get me things, and they still do that
That's great.
all these years later.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of a tradition that we do now.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
eventually, Belle's going to have to use her own money, though.
Well, did you get that, Bill? That was like a hard play right there. Okay, so what else then? What else you got?
Do not isolate yourself.
Okay.
And I mean, that is so tempting. And I think for me, because of Belle, that just wasn't an option.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of widows, because they don't have children at home, because most widows are older.
Right.
I was 45, and but most widows are older, or at least their kids are older, and they're maybe living at home, but they're older and they're going
Right.
and doing their own thing,
Exactly.
and they're driving and
Right.
whatever, and so you can really isolate yourself. And so get out there and be with people, even if it's hard, even if it's awkward. You just can't hide. That's not good for you
No.
at all. One of the things that I say sometimes is, it's good to acknowledge your grief, but don't wallow in it. I mean, it's healthy. You need to acknowledge that
Absolutely.
grief. You need to be there. You need to let yourself go through those times, but don't stay there.
Right.
So, like, if you stay in bed one day, the next day you better get out and do something,
Right. Right.
because that bed will get,
Awful comfortable.
yes,
It will. And in the long run, not
And
comfortable.
hey, I'm a sleeper.
Yeah.
I sleep like a champ.
Yeah.
But so it would have been very tempting
Uh-huh.
to go to bed and never wake up.
Well, and it's also helpful to have for Christians to grieve with you.
Yes.
You know, we need to know how to mourn and grieve together. And
Yeah.
you know, in the Bible, people talk about, you know, like they're actually like mourning groups that followed people, like they were
Right.
professional mourners on some level.
Right.
They understood the value of having somebody grieve with you.
Right.
And I think in our culture and our society, we've moved further from that than we need to.
Right.
You know?
I've had, even recently, I've had some new widows say to me that people will say to them, "You need to pull yourself together." Or,
Wow.
you need to get over this and get back to real life. That's not helpful.
No.
Not at all.
I know.
But you don't need to isolate yourself.
Right.
I mean, nobody's should be expecting you to do everything that you've always done, but don't hide away either. That's not
a
good for
word.
you.
All right, help us some more.
One of the things that has been really important for me is to do for other people. Every holiday season, I've tried to think of, I've done some of the same things, but I try to think of something new every year. I'll think of a couple of widow friends that maybe have just lost their husband this year, and I will reach out to them, send them a gift, send them flowers, ask them if they want to go to lunch. I know with COVID that's a little bit more
Right.
difficult.
But you know what?
think
I
outside
really,
the box.
I've said over and over and over again, and I like that you just said think outside the box. You know, ministry doesn't stop happening
Right.
because COVID happened.
right.
We just have to get far more creative and figure out, what to do when a wall is put up.
Right.
You got to figure out how to scale it,
Right, right.
and climb that.
Well,
So-
yeah, and it doesn't have to be a widow doing something for another widow. That's great and that's fine.
Right.
But it can also be doing the angel tree gift thing, or doing a Operation Christmas Child box, or just something that takes the focus off of your grief and puts it on others, because that gives you a purpose.
Right.
And that gives you a way to bless other people. And I mean, we all know that when we bless other people,
Yeah.
we get that,
Right.
in double portion back to us. And in fact, this year, and I just thought of this yesterday, and I haven't really fleshed this out, so I don't know if it'll be something that I can make happen. I'd love to do like an adopt a widow thing, where people could
That's a great idea.
have a widow that their family particularly focuses on during the season, and
Right.
just drops a gift by their house or sends them a card, or
Right.
whatever.
I mean, it really is a biblical concept.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
imagine that.
Right.
The
Right.
one thing that when they gave deacons to the church, it was for caring for the widows and
Yeah.
all the way that, I mean, it obviously was a huge ministry.
Right.
The Bible again addresses that, and so it falls on us, not just as a responsibility, but a real privilege
Right.
to be able to love the Lord
Right.
through loving
Right.
in that way.
Right.
Okay, other things,
Right.
anything
Right.
else you got for us in that?
Recruit help if you need it. If you need help paying, it's really hard for a widow to ask for help, for one thing. And some are in financial need and some are not, but there are other needs besides that. But ask for help. I mean, if you're the one that usually does the Christmas dinner at your house, ask for help, especially if it's the first year, because grief is absolutely exhausting. That's one thing I did not know, is how tiring it is. Just takes a toll on your body. And brain fog is real, just like pregnancy brain and chemo brain and all of those things.
Oh,
It
sure.
is a real thing that makes you, it's protecting you
For sure.
from the trauma, but it makes you not be able to remember things that you would normally remember. So unless your family wants to have roles that maybe have something crazy in them because you've forgotten
Right.
what goes in roles, you might want to recruit help, right? So just recruit any kind of help, whether it's financial or whether it's just helping get gifts or helping do a meal or whatever, or to get your tree up
Yeah.
or whatever,
Right.
or get your car running or whatever it is. Don't be afraid to ask for help because people want to know. I
Right.
have found that people want to know.
Right, they don't
how
know
can
what the help
but they
is.
don't know what. And you're not being kind to them if you don't let them help,
Right.
in my opinion.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, and I also see, I know from your list, you talk about thankfulness, focusing on thankfulness.
Be intentional about, more than ever before, about thankfulness, not just at Thanksgiving, but especially at Thanksgiving. In American culture especially, we make Thanksgiving and Christmas so much about family, and that's great and that's awesome, and I love my family and family's great.
You do love your family, right?
But we're not supposed to be putting the focus on them. We're supposed to be putting it on the Lord.
Right.
We're supposed to be thankful to Him. We're supposed to be thanking Him for His Son, the gift of His Son. And when we make it all about family, then we're putting that on the throne instead of Him.
Right.
So I found that when I intentionally focused on thankfulness, so I think I got the Daily Grace Company or She Reads Truth. All of those places, there's lots of different companies that put out Advent publications or just Thanksgiving publications. And work through that Bible study. Discipline yourself, even in your grief, to focus where you need to be focused. And instead of dwelling so much on your loss, which is awful and terrible, dwell on the one that can help you through your loss.
Right, right, which is what your last thing is make
Yeah.
it about Christ.
Right.
Whatever that looks like, however you can pull that in. Okay, now we're going to shift gears. I don't want to rush us through at all because I think it's really important now to sort of help us know how, as friends, and when I say friends, I mean it's a wide range. Friends are people who know you, know you really well, have been with you and thick and thin, and those who simply have been introduced to you and they're just an acquaintance friend.
Yeah.
But once you're a friend, I think you have a responsibility. And figuring out how can I be a blessing in that and stuff. So help us now as friends of those who are widowed, what we can do, especially during this time.
For one, thanks for asking that, because I have found in working with some of the widows across the Commonwealth that not every church is as good about coming around widows and being there for them. And it's broken my heart. It's not something I can relate to because our church has just been so helpful and caring and doing these kinds of things. That doesn't happen everywhere, so thank you for that. One of the things I've got down here is to invite and include a widow but don't smother them. And you know, I was thinking about Kara Hutcherson. She's had a Christmas party since, gosh, an annual Christmas party since we were probably in our early 20s. Actually, I was in my early 20s. She's older than me. She'll be disappointed if I don't say that.
I can't wait to hear her feistiness show up about that.
Right. So she's had that party every year. She was gracious, of course, to continue to invite me, even after, you know, it was kind of a couples thing, a family thing. She was gracious to keep inviting me, and I was trying to think back, I don't think I went that year, because, I mean, it'd probably just been
brand
a month.
new, right.
And I don't think I went that year, but I know she was gracious.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and the invitation meant a lot too. It's sort of like a signal that
we still want
we
you.
You're still a vital
Because
part of our life.
It doesn't make any sense, but widows have this self-esteem issue. A lot of us do.
Sure.
Of, well, people still want me now that we're not a team. You know, who am I? You know, that's been a big one. Is, you know, I know I've been Molly and Steve for 20 years. Who am I now? You know, so she was gracious to just keep inviting and keep, you know, and I don't think I went that year, but I've gone every year since. So don't be offended if they don't come. But another idea is sometimes it's that it's difficult, especially at first, to go into a coupley thing. So maybe say, okay, if you don't feel comfortable coming to the Christmas party, can we meet for coffee? Or can we go shopping together? Or can we, so that way they still know that you're important to them.
That's a good word. Yeah,
You know?
I had not thought of that venue.
Yeah.
That's really a good word.
Yeah, because you want to be assured that your friendships are still there. Just like sometimes we do with divorce too. Sometimes, you know, when people are divorced, friendships with couples, you know, you just don't have those friends anymore.
Right.
It can be that way with widows too. It's because now that you're not a couple, you feel like people don't want you anymore. Now, that can be totally unfounded.
Right.
But that's kind of what you feel like. So, yeah, I think it's really important.
Okay.
The other one I have down here is remember with her. Just don't, I think sometimes people try to change the subject. But if she is remembering her husband fondly, or even just breaking down in tears, don't change the subject. Remember with her, laugh with her. Come up with, or even if she's broken down, you think of a funny story, you know, or a touching story, or something that helps them know that you remember their spouse well. I mean, that is huge. When somebody, and I had somebody text me last week. He was up in a deer stand, and he was one of Steve's buddies, and he said, "I'm sitting here in this deer stand, and I can't get Steve off my mind."
Wow.
And I was just like, 4 years, and he hasn't forgotten.
That's
you
wonderful.
know, it's just
right.
It just fills me up.
Yeah, that's a new truth I have learned to apply, a new reality in that the Lord, as I get older, obviously, more people who are my friends are widowing, or, you know, that's just the cycle of life. And I, you know, within the last year or so, I had a friend who had lost her husband, and I brought him up to her and said, you know, here's one thing I loved about your husband. He recognized I have an edgy side to me, and he always sort of went in that little feistiness with me and the banter. And some people don't ever know that side of me, but he knew that about me, and knows, you know, the kind of music I know. I like edgy, you know, like the Ramones. I like, you know, and he was a music guy, and so he and I had this unique friendship in that way. And I said to her, you know, he always did that. That was really neat. And later, weeks later, she caught me at church, and she just said, "Thank you for saying his name and bringing him up." And she taught me something in that moment, that really is the appropriate thing, not the awkward thing to do. It's the appropriate thing to do.
And I promise you, I don't care how many years they've been gone.
Yeah.
We're thinking about them anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you're bringing them up and you're ruining
our
day.
No, and even if you cry, that's not a bad, you know, like if I bring up Steve and you cry, that's not necessarily the wrong thing.
Right,
You know,
right,
it's like,
right.
because your response would go, oh, I'm sorry, and you'd feel like you went the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
You know, if
Yeah.
you're sharing in the love of their life,
Right.
then those emotions are pretty
yeah.
real,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
gonna
Yeah,
come
you
out.
want
So,
people to remember them
right.
fondly.
All right. Well, how
And
about practical things like need meeting, all that kind of things? Is that helpful during this time?
yes, it's very helpful. So, like I said earlier, widows usually aren't going to tell you their need. You need to be attentive. You need to really listen to them. You need to realize that when your husband's out on the lawnmower, maybe their husband's
Right.
not there.
Right.
So what are they doing about that? What, do they? And they very well may have a plan for that. They may love to mow their yard
Right.
themselves.
Right.
And that's great. But just to ask,
Right.
Well,
Well,
what needs to be done
when
around
you
your
said be
house?
attentive, I like that because when you spoke at that one event where you addressed this, and I think you maybe it was in a panel discussion or something like that, but you mentioned Doritos. Am I right? Doritos and
Exactly.
Coke. Am
Yeah.
I off base?
It was Doritos and Coke. Yeah, I had posted something about that my husband knew my love language,
Okay.
Doritos and Coke, because he would just come home and he knew what I liked and he would just bring me a snack,
Right.
And I had posted that, and Max and Lori Good remembered it, and I'm standing in line at the visitation, and there's a line out the door at Herod Brothers. I mean, it's like down the street. I stood there from 5, I think, to 10 or 10:30.
Yeah.
And they come around me and they've got a Kroger bag and it's got Doritos and Coke in it.
Yeah,
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you remembered that.
They intentionally paid attention. They paid attention to
Absolutely,
details and
absolutely.
listened
Yeah.
to that.
And then I got home Christmas Eve, and they say it wasn't them, so I'm going to believe that it wasn't them. I don't know who it was. Still to this day, don't know who it was. I got home Christmas Eve, and there was Doritos and Coke on my porch
Wow.
on that first
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And it just warmed my heart.
And it's you see it, and I know you well enough to go. You go, look what the Lord did.
Oh, absolutely.
And so when Christians
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
for their brothers and sisters who are in situations like that, what they don't really fully recognize sometimes is that the Lord is trying to show how He cares for us.
Right.
And that fleeting moment
Yeah.
that runs across your brain isn't just hey, well, that was a nice little thought.
Yeah.
No, that's the Lord.
That's the Holy Spirit giving you a
going,
little nudge.
going and saying, hey,
Yeah.
just make my name known.
Yes, yes.
Give me glory by doing
and
these
part
things.
of what a widow wants is to know that people see them.
Yeah.
I see you. I see you're hurting. I see you're in pain.
Yeah.
And so when somebody does like something like that, not only is that person saying that, but they feel the Lord saying that. I
Right.
see you.
Yeah.
And I told them to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's huge.
Oh, it's just incalculable
Yeah,
worth.
Doritos and Coke seems like a silly thing, but
Man,
to somebody that
know,
likes Doritos and Coke,
absolutely.
it would be like Herschel with the Reese cups.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
He
Oh,
knows. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that's his love language.
Yeah.
And so that's.
Yeah. So I'm going to be, if Herschel ever, passes away, whatever, and people spy me, I'll just be a butterball because I'll just eat all what he doesn't eat.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to have to do this, and I hate this
Yes.
let's just give off those bullet points, and then I'm going to point them to your blog that you actually talk this about,
Okay.
so they can go back and we can go back and revisit these things and
Okay.
go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember when you said that I need to do that.
Yeah.
So
There's
this
only a
is
couple other
okay.
things. Give lots of hugs, and again, it's a COVID thing.
Can't do
you
it.
know, you can't.
Elbow bump.
Elbow bump. A little card in the mail.
Yeah.
Anything. When we're not in this kind of a scenario, affection is important
It
because
is.
people forget that their main source of affection is no longer there.
Right.
Right? So just giving them a hug, handshake or hold their hand or just a tap on the shoulder, whatever,
Yeah.
something like that. And then I think this one's so important is think beyond Christmas. all of winter is hard. And especially for those that are older women that are living by themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, our lives shift, and we kind of joke about how when we get home and it's dark, we put our pajamas on.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
it gets dark at 6 o'clock or a little,
Right.
sometimes as early as
Yeah,
5:30.
right.
That is a long night.
It is.
When do you feel the most lonely?
Right.
At night,
Right.
typically. That's a long time to be in the dark by yourself. And it just gets to be a very lonely time. And that goes through the winter.
Right.
So there's lots of ways that you can minister to a widow even beyond Christmas.
Yeah.
You know, once winter ends, they're usually out and about. Of course, they need you all the time.
Sure.
Obviously. But winter's just harder.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Molly, thank you for sharing your love of the Lord, your life, and comforting, and the comfort you've received from Christ, and helping us to know how to comfort well. And you've comforted me even in this whole process. And so you've shown me that, you can count on God to be faithful.
Absolutely.
Without any question. All right. Well, her blog is mollyminutes.wordpress.com.
The easier way to get there is through Facebook.
Okay.
Just do Still Blessed blog.
Still Blessed.
And you'll get through there.
Blog. Okay. Also, I will either post one of these blogs, both these blogs, or you can either one on the Thursday, when this is showing, so people can really link. I'm telling you all, it's funny, it's enjoyable, it's engaging, it's real, and it's faithful to honor the Lord. So I appreciate you doing that. But you know what the most repeated sentence in the Bible is? His steadfast love endures forever.
It does.
And I think the fact that God saw that worth repeating, that he just says that over and over again, that's a pretty good word to close on. Yes. And it says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies what?
They never, ever, ever end.
Let's end on that. God bless. Be faithful. Bye.